Hello, everyone coming to us both live and later. Welcome to yet another installment of our ongoing series, Hannon Inside Out. I'm your interview host for today, Vero, student assistant at William H. Hannon Library on the Loyola Marymount University campus. As I've stated before, this is the spot we at the library introduce you to who keeps Hannon happening. A warm and grateful welcome to have Jessea Young, our digital initiatives librarian, with us for today's installment. She's wonderful and such a great human being and one of my favorite people right now. I'm going to be honest. It's great to see you and have you here. Welcome. And thank you again for joining us today. How have you been doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. All right, I'm really excited. So let's get into our first question, which I absolutely love asking because the range is either so you shush people for a living, which is actually not the case for every individual working at a library, to cool. So what does that mean? Uh a personal favorite response. So when you tell people you work at a library, what's their typical reaction?
So I get 50-50. So half the time I get, oh my God, I love libraries. That's so cool. But then I also get the folks who are like, libraries are going to die in 20 years. And then and it's so rude that you just kind of laugh it off and you're like, okay, like, good story, bro. But it's 50-50. I get like really happy, excited people, and I get the people who like really don't understand what a library is for. So yeah, I
I
love
can
it. It's great.
it's great. Yeah, I was like, I can imagine just depending on the audience, you're like, oh, probably gonna get this answer. What?
Yeah. It's really funny because then you go, well, do you know what the library does? And oh, I didn't know that your department could afford all these resources by itself. And then they're like, oh yeah, like I need you, and you're like, yeah, well, just a little, but yeah.
I love it. I love to hear it. What's it like to work at the library in the job position you're in? Could you explain your title and what it details for you?
Yeah, so I'm a digital initiatives librarian. What I do is it's kind of twofold. I manage the LMU institutional repository, which means I organize and collect and preserve scholarship written and published by folks in the LMU community. So I go ask the professor, hey, what have you published this year? And then they let me know. And then I try to find a way to preserve it and make it open access, meaning available all over the internet for free. Um, or I also I work with archives and special collections and I help digitize materials for them. So, if they have a big digital exhibition or something's coming up, I assist in scanning those materials for them and putting that in our digital collection.
I love it. Well, thank you so much because I've had classes where we've seen that kind of. So I'm thank you. How did you come to work at the library?
Okay, so this is like a long-winded story, but it's definitely a millennial story. So my origin story is really I started in the museum world and I really wanted to be a collections registrar. If you don't know what that means, a museum collections registrar is kind of like the person who keeps track of the artifacts throughout the museum. So like what exhibit room are they in? Where are they in storage? Because each shelf has a name. So that was something I really wanted to do. But being a millennial, there's not a lot of jobs open at the time I was looking. And so one day during an internship, my boss was like, hey, I need you to go in the museum storage and go look for a manuscript. And so, okay, just imagine like the storage is about, I don't know, maybe like a floor of the library. And I'm looking for one singular book that nobody knows where it is, or if we actually ever had that book and it was just like a record that was, orphaned. Um, so literally the entire day, I just went shelf by shelf looking for this artifact or this manuscript. And while doing that, I was like, I think this should actually be in the archive. Like, why am I looking through a museum? And I realized, oh, I never thought about working in an archive. So then I went home and I was researching like how do you become an archivist? What does that take? And I stumbled upon like graduate school Well, anyways, so fast forward, I get into graduate school and I get into the archiving class, and I'm like, why are we keeping all this trash? And then that's when I realized I was not meant for archives. It is not something that I could like wrap my head around. It wasn't something I was good at. But what I was really good at was digital skills because I was used to working with museum databases. I could use those similar skills in being a digital initiatives librarian, as in, keeping track of digital assets and, you know, talking to it's not like talking to donors, you're talking to faculty members to ask them for the publication information, but that same kind of transferable skills was used. And so I moved into digital initiatives, digital collections, and oral histories, which is something I was really interested in. So that is how I became a librarian. It's very long-winded, but I think it's definitely a millennial story of like what's in the job market, what did I love, and what transferable skills did I already.
I love it. That was a great story. No, I definitely saw the transferable skills, like, go in from, like, archives to, like, oh, specifically into a different kind of area, but somewhat similar, mainly different, though. So I kind of see the kind of parallels going on there. I love that for you. I love that you were able to figure that out. How was I know you kind of explained it, but, like, how was, like, the process of, like, figuring that out? Like, was it, like, kind of, like, tumultuous, or was it kind of like, "Oh," was it like a click? Like, I'm just curious.
Like when I decided I was not good at archives.
Yeah, that or,
Oh, yeah,
going in.
I was just like, I don't get it. I really don't. I don't understand. And I just like my brain was like too small. I felt like I was thinking too narrowly. I think that was my problem. But when I did another internship at the Massachusetts State Library where we had to scan onion paper. Do you know what onion paper is?
No.
So it's like the thinnest, like crispy. I don't even know what the right preservation terms for this is, but it's a very, very thin, like paper, like substance. And we were trying to scan it, and I was like, "Wow, this is awesome!" Like I am trying to scan something that feels impossible to scan, and so that's what really clicked for me was like I like working with archives, but I don't necessarily like processing or like, going through and reading it. I really enjoy trying to get that material out to the public, um, who cannot, maybe come into the building for research, but want to see something pretty at home, so that was something that really.
I love that. Thank you so much for explaining. I was just very curious as you were speaking. I was like, "I wonder." Uh, so this kind of question kind of segues in, but how have you adapted your job in this online environment we found ourselves in? Have there been any major changes you can think of?
Um, okay, so being like the digital is in my title, it's actually pretty easy because a lot of my work was already over email. I very rarely had meetings with people in person, because a lot of it was like, "Hi, can I have access to a box folder you might have?" And so that was really it. So it didn't change that much when it comes to like digitizing things. That definitely slowed down. So that was a little bit of a hard adjustment on us. But the cool thing was that I could focus on the institutional repository. And so for the last 3 months, for example, my student workers and I have added 500 PDFs to our institutional repository, which is a lot considering last year we only uploaded 700. So for entire 12 months. So the fact that we did, in 3 months we did 500 is extremely impressive. So it helped me really focus on getting a big projects done.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the 3 month, 1 year. Wow, that is a lot of PDFs.
Yes, and it's so cool when students are able to really directly contribute to this institutional repository. I think a lot of people don't really know about it, or I don't explain it well all the time. So when I get students involved and they start understanding what's happening, that's really exciting.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, this one definitely segues, but I feel like you've already covered it, but what are some other of your favorite things about your position? if you could think of anything
Mm,
else, because you really covered like a lot of things that are really great that I see that you have so much passion for.
what else do I really enjoy other than my coworkers and my ability to share my dog photos with them, unsolicited? Um,
That's kind.
um, I think I really enjoy working with my student employees and giving them transferable skills. I think a lot of students come in and they're like, "Oh, I'm working for the library. I can't use this skill." And I really challenge that way of thinking like, "Well, no, you've gotten really good at using Excel sheets. You're learning how to work in a work from home environment. They are very independent. They have to keep track of their own hours and their workload, and they have to communicate with each other without me being involved in mediating between them on getting things move forward and pushing forward. And they also have to deal with me, who is like, they're like, oh, I need you to do this thing, and they have to like sometimes circle back to me and remind me. And so they're learning a certain sense of like professionalism and collaboration in a digital environment. So I think that's one of the cool things that I get to help or I force them to learn in some cases. But I really enjoy that aspect because I also started my academic career working in a library, and I swear hand on heart, I think they wanted to fire me the first quarter I was there because I was such a mess. You're a freshman, you're learning. But I mean, I stayed for the rest of my undergraduate experience in the position, and I learned so much because I could take that skill and I could have two other campus jobs that I could work on because I was organizing. It was, customer service. So it was really great. And I hope I impart that kind of thinking to our student workers so that their job, their you know regular student worker position is transferable into their next career.
I love that. As a student worker, I love that. I love that so much. Oh, wow.
I know, because I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, I work in the library," and they're like, "Oh, so you put away books?" But there's so much more than that, like, yeah, but it's independent work, you have to be extremely detail oriented, you have to be fast, nobody's watching you, right? So, and if you miss shelf things or, anything, well, that's on you, and somebody's gonna find out, so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a look into, like, accountability and, like, getting those skills, getting that experience especially.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is students learning to come up to me and be like, "I made a big mistake." And then I like, "Okay, well, let's figure out how to troubleshoot this from now." And so when somebody can own up to that and just be like, "Okay, like what do I do now? How do I fix this? How do I prevent this?" I think that's a really big important learning step in growth.
For sure, no, for sure. Kind of switching gears a little bit, but I would love to hear about your involvement with the People of Color in Library and Information Service, Conference, or POC in LIS. Could you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, so myself and a few other librarians, the one being Natalie Ballas, who is the business librarian here at LMU, we created this summit that focuses and celebrates librarians of color. And, you know, uh, it's like a very unique space because it is centralized on people of color and librarians or information workers of color and getting their scholarship out there. So it's a very unique place for them to share presentations, um, what they've learned or and publications that they're working on. And I think it's a unique space because it's a very safe space where we can, explore what it means to be a person of color in librarianship, but also be very candid with each other of what we experience, and then find ways for us to collaborate um, and then uplift each other together.
I love that. I love all of what you just said so much. I I feel like that's, like, such, like, a valid and such, like, a great thing to just be a part of and to, like, have helped make. Like, I can only imagine what kind of, experiences and what kind of conversations that you've had because of that work that you've done. And I love it. I love it.
Oh, yeah, it's a big learning experience. I think, like, learning how to budget for a conference is that's also something that maybe is bigger than I. But it's a big learning experience, learning how to, write grants from my co-organizers who wrote a grant to get money, for it, and I've never done that before, so it was all very interesting.
Yeah, lots of moving parts. I thank you for sharing. So finally, to wrap up our segment, do you have any inklings or nuggets of wisdom, anything really, that you'd like to share with our students and viewers, both present and future?
Ooh, hmm. I don't think I prepared for this because I was like, "Oh, I'll come up with something later." Uh,
Okay.
um, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's a really important thing. When you feel like you're floundering or you're just not sure, just there's nothing wrong with asking questions. So always keep asking questions. Don't ever be afraid to keep learning. I think one thing that we do as students, and I myself do as a student, is I tend to procrastinate when I don't know what's going on. And so one way to combat that is to get very comfortable with asking questions. You're not doing things by yourself or alone, and um, I think it's very important to keep asking questions and ask
Very
for
true.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true, very applicable. I wanna thank you again for being here with me and with us, and for viewers both live and listening at some future date. This concludes today's Hannon Inside Out interview. Thank you to everyone watching. Take care. This was, such a great time. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.